What if the story of humanity began not on land, but beneath the surface of the oceans? For as long as history remembers, humans have stood on solid ground. We learned to control fire, shape stone, clear forests, and build cities that stretch toward the sky. Every myth, every empire, every war has been rooted in land. But evolution is not destiny, it is chance. And a single shift in that chance could have rewritten everything we are. Imagine a world where early humans never fully left the water. A world where survival did not depend on mastering fire, but on mastering pressure, currents, and darkness. A world where cities were not carved into mountains, but grown slowly beneath the waves. The ocean is not empty. It is the largest living system on Earth, older than forests, older than dinosaurs, older than humanity itself. It shapes life through patience, not force, through balance, not domination. If humans had evolved in this environment, our bodies, our cultures, our technologies, and even our morality would be fundamentally different. There would be no roads, no borders drawn in ink, no smoke rising from burning fuel. Instead, there would be vertical cities, living architecture, and civilizations that glow rather than burn. This is not fantasy in the traditional sense. Scientists already study speculative evolution, asking how intelligence adapts to extreme environments, and the ocean is one of the most demanding environments imaginable. So tonight, we ask a question that forces us to rethink civilization itself. What would humans look like if water was our natural home? How would society function without fire? Would we still conquer, or would survival demand cooperation? To answer that, we must dive deeper than history, into an alternate version of humanity itself.
The ocean does not forgive weakness. Pressure increases with depth. Light disappears. Oxygen becomes scarce. If humans evolved in this environment, every feature of our bodies would be shaped by one relentless force: survival. Aquatic humans would likely develop streamlined bodies, reducing resistance as they move through dense water. Hair, useful for warmth on land, would vanish, replaced by smooth skin and a thick layer of insulating fat to protect against cold depths. Every unnecessary feature would be stripped away. Breathing would define their evolution. Pure lungs would limit how long they could remain underwater, so natural selection would favor a dual system. Gill-like structures might extract oxygen directly from water, while lungs remain useful near the surface. Breathing would become flexible, adaptive, never fixed to a single method. Hands, humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, would remain. Fingers would be webbed yet highly dexterous, capable of delicate manipulation. These hands would shape tools, art, and technology, proving that intelligence does not require land to flourish. Eyes would grow larger, optimized for low light vision. Color perception might extend into wavelengths invisible to land humans. Hearing would shift away from airborne sound, becoming sensitive to vibrations and pressure waves, allowing communication across vast distances. Language itself would evolve differently. Spoken words would be inefficient underwater. Instead, communication would rely on clicks, hums, low-frequency pulses, body movements, and even subtle color changes in the skin. A single message could travel for miles. These humans would not resemble mythical mermaids or fish-like creatures. They would look undeniably human, yet profoundly alien. Their bodies would tell a story written not by fire and stone, but by water and time.
Daily life underwater would feel unfamiliar to us, but perfectly natural to those born into it. There would be no streets, no sidewalks, no wheeled vehicles. Instead, movement would be three-dimensional. Up and down would matter as much as forward and backward. Children would learn depth awareness as early as walking. Homes would not be constructed in days or months. They would be grown over generations. Cities would emerge from coral-like materials, shaped slowly by human hands and biological processes. Some structures would anchor to the seabed for stability. Others would float mid-water, held in place by buoyant chambers and natural currents. Entire districts might drift seasonally, migrating with food sources. There would be no fire for warmth or cooking. Instead, geothermal vents would provide heat. Food preparation would rely on fermentation, chemical processes, pressure cooking, and controlled exposure to warm currents. Aquatic farming would dominate. Kelp forests, algae fields, and domesticated marine species carefully managed to avoid collapse. Personal space would feel different. Walls would be thinner, communities closer. Privacy would exist, but isolation would be rare. Survival underwater depends on awareness of others, of danger, of change. Navigation would be intuitive. People would read currents the way we read roads. Temperature shifts, salinity changes, and pressure gradients would act as invisible maps. Life would move at a calmer pace. Energy is precious underwater. Waste is dangerous. Efficiency would be a cultural value, not just a technological one. In this world, daily life would not feel rushed. It would feel balanced.
Fire built land civilization. Without it, underwater humanity would follow an entirely different technological path. Energy would not be extracted, it would be borrowed. Geothermal vents would act as power hubs, providing heat and kinetic energy. Tidal movement would generate constant mechanical force. Pressure differences between depths could be converted into usable power. Even bioelectric organisms might be cultivated to produce controlled electrical currents. Light would never come from bulbs. Instead, bioluminescent organisms would illuminate cities. Streets would glow softly. Homes would pulse with living light. Colors could shift to signal danger, celebration, or communication. Light itself would become a language. Materials would also differ. Metalworking would be rare and extremely complex, requiring sealed environments. Instead, technology would rely on stone, shell, bone, and advanced biological materials, grown, shaped, and regenerated rather than mined and discarded. Tools would be organic in appearance, but precise in function. Technology would not feel separate from nature, it would feel alive. Information storage would not rely solely on writing. Data might be preserved through sound patterns, living memory organisms, or etched stone archives protected from currents. Innovation would still exist, but it would be careful. Every advancement would be tested against one question: does this harm the ocean? If the answer were yes, it would not be adopted, because in this world, technology that damages the environment threatens immediate extinction.
Underwater survival rewards cooperation, not competition. Aquatic human societies would be deeply communal. Family units would extend far beyond parents and children, forming pods that share responsibility for protection, education, and care. Individualism would exist, but never at the expense of the group. Ownership would be limited. Resources would be shared because hoarding underwater creates imbalance, and imbalance attracts disaster. Art would not be static. Living coral sculptures would grow and change over decades. Sound art would echo through the depths, carrying stories across vast distances. Light displays would replace paintings, forming moving murals visible from far away. History would be remembered through song, long, complex narratives encoded in sound patterns passed down across generations. To forget history would be to lose identity. Time itself would feel different. Without constant sunlight, days would be measured by tides, moon cycles, and seasonal shifts in currents. Life would be rhythmic rather than scheduled. Education would be experiential. Children would learn by immersion, guided through currents, ecosystems, and living cities. Knowledge would be shared freely because survival depends on collective understanding. Culture would emphasize patience, awareness, and restraint. Loudness, waste, and recklessness would be social taboos. In this world, greatness would not be measured by conquest, but by harmony. Could aquatic humans wage war? Yes, but they would fear it. Underwater warfare would be devastating. Explosions would poison ecosystems. Structural damage could collapse entire cities. Pollution would spread instantly, affecting attacker and defender alike. Because of this, war would be rare, controlled, and highly strategic. Conflicts would focus on territory that matters most: warm currents, breeding zones, and geothermal vents. Control of these resources could mean survival or extinction. Weapons would rely on stealth rather than destruction. Sonic pressure devices, disorientation waves, and environmental manipulation would replace traditional arms. Camouflage would be critical. Detection would be dangerous. Victory would not mean annihilation. It would mean deterrence. Most disputes would be resolved through negotiation, migration, or shared resource agreements. War would be seen as a failure of intelligence, not a triumph. In a world where the environment remembers every mistake, violence would be the last option.
Aquatic civilizations would not spread outward. They would stretch vertically. From sunlit shallows to blackened trenches, cities would exist in layers. Each depth would host different communities, professions, and cultures. Light-rich zones would focus on education and art. Deeper regions would specialize in energy, research, and long-term archives. Capital cities would emerge near stable currents and geothermal hubs, places where energy and life converge. Architecture would feel organic. Buildings would breathe. Light would pulse. Entire cities would feel alive. Transportation would follow currents, not resist them. Migration would be seasonal. Civilization would move with the ocean, not against it. There would be no global empire, only interconnected networks of cities linked by sound, memory, and shared survival. From a distance, these civilizations would look like constellations beneath the sea, quiet, glowing, ancient. If humans had evolved in water, civilization would look profoundly different. Less violent, more cooperative, deeply sustainable. But perhaps the most important difference would not be technological or biological. It would be philosophical. On land, humanity learned to dominate nature, to conquer it, divide it, and bend it to our will. Forests became resources, rivers became boundaries, mountains became obstacles to be conquered. But in water, humanity would learn something else entirely: to listen. The ocean punishes arrogance and rewards balance. It teaches that survival is collective, that no individual, no city, no civilization exists alone. Every action ripples outward. Every mistake is remembered by the environment itself. This imagined world forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our intelligence did not require conquest. Our technology did not require destruction. Our future does not require domination. Perhaps the real question is not what if humans lived in water, but whether our survival on land now depends on learning the lessons of the sea. Because the deepest wisdom humanity could ever learn may already surround us. And if you want more documentaries like this, exploring alternate evolutions, lost possibilities, and the hidden paths humanity never took, let us know in the comments. What should we cover next? What if humans never invented fire? What if Earth had no moon? What if humans evolved underground? What if intelligence evolved without vision? What if another species became intelligent before humans?